You're using the Red Bible to follow the reading. It is on page 980. It is Acts 14, verses 1 through 7. Acts 14, 1 through 7. Now, it happened in Iconium that they went together to the synagogue of the Jews, and so spoke that a great multitude, both of the Jews and of the Gentiles, believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned or embittered their souls or minds against the brethren. Therefore they stayed there for a long time, speaking boldly in the Lord, who was bearing witness to the word of his grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided, part sided with the Jews, part with the apostles. And when a violent attempt was made by both the Gentiles and the Jews with their rulers to abuse and stone them, they became aware of it and fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and to the surrounding region. And they were preaching the gospel there. Acts 14, 1 through 7.
Morning, church. It's good to be with you today, even despite the rain. If you would, if you all have fill out your attendance cards, please pass those to the center aisle so our young men can pick them up during our announcement period. We'll continue on in our series in Acts chapter 14. The title for my sermon today is God's Open Door. God's Open Door. You know, we are in September. Depending on how old you are, I remember where I was during September 11th. I was in 10th grade geometry class. That's how I was in 10th grade. I can remember my teacher's name, Miss Berber. And I remember I was sitting there working out some kind of geometry problem. It was an assignment for class. And, you know, I always kind of paid attention to what was going on in the room. But my teacher, the phone rang, she picked it up, and her like, face changed. She's ran and turned on the TV. I was thinking, that's kind of odd. But when she turned on the TV, I saw that there was a plane that was in a building. And the first thought that came to my mind was poor people. A pilot must have made some kind of error, ran into a building. Now, at first I didn't know what city it was. You know, I'm from Florida, so I didn't know that was in New York City, but I learned that very quickly. I said, oh man, must be some really bad accident. But then not too long after that, a second plane hit the second building, and I was like, oh my goodness, now I know what that is. This has got to be on purpose. My second thought was, oh man, we're going to go to war with somebody. The U.S. is not going to take that. This is an act of drug. And little do I know was that I got right in the fact that this was a terrorism. You see, we live in a fallen world. People do not respect the value of human life. So they do what they can to take life. It doesn't matter the motivation. When a life is taken, innocently or not, it causes effects. In today's Acts text, we see that Paul and Barnabas are going to bring their attention to the open door that God brings to us. You know, sometimes we see religious people who claim to be religious attempt to kill other people, or even religious people, over what they think God's open door is. They think it's violence. But really, they are attempting to close God's door. when you see people who are claiming to be religious do that, they close many people's hearts and minds to God's open door. So you might ask us, what is this open door? God's door that is open is faith and the belief that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So we're going to see in this Acts text today in chapter 14, well, why God is sending Paul and Barnabas out to these different areas is to open the door to them that the gospel is open to everyone, not just Jews, but Gentiles as well, everyone. So let us begin by reading what the text says. I'm going to go ahead and reread some, but we're going to go a little further. In Iconium, they entered the synagogue of the Jews together and spoke in such a manner that a large number of people believed, both Jews and Greeks. For the Jews who disbelieved stirred up the minds of Gentiles and embittered them against the brethren. I like that idea of foiling their minds. Therefore, they spent a long time there speaking boldly with resilient reliance upon God, who was testifying to the word of his grace, granting that signs and wonders were done by their hands. But the people of the city were divided, the Jews and some of the apostles. In verse 5, when an attempt was made by both the Gentiles and the Jews with their rulers to mistreat and stone them, they became aware of it and fled the cities of Lycaonia, Lystra, and Derbe, and surrounding region, and there continued to preach the gospel. And in verse 8, at Lystra, a man was sitting there who had no strength in his feet, was lame from his mother's womb, who had never walked. So we see God's open door was Iconium. We see that God granted Paul and Barnabas success, and God helped them. We see this idea of speaking in a manner, speaking boldly for people. Do you know this idea of speaking boldly and getting recognized and speaking passionately? We know this works well, even in the regular world. Now, I was not alive during the debate between President Kennedy and President Nixon, but it's mentioned oftentimes in history and a lot of social sciences when it talks about this particular debate, because there were two views based on the perspective there. See, the radio people who listened to the debate felt that Nixon won the debate, but at the time, TV had more viewership, believed that Kennedy won the debate. And I bring this illustration up to demonstrate to you that what the difference was between hearing and then seeing and hearing is that Paul and Barnabas were seen and heard, so they could see the demeanor and see the boldness. So the reason why Kennedy was perceived to have won the debate is because he was seen and heard on television. Because when you see the body language, you hear the voice. But we see the result of Paul and Barnabas, a large number of Greeks or Gentiles and Jews believe in Jesus Christ. But just like we see many chapters before in Acts, it almost seems like it's just, but it's because of the way the world is. The Jews who disbelieved stirred up the minds of Gentiles because they disbelieved the gospel. They did not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. They thought he was just some good teacher. They did not recognize who Jesus was. They did not recognize God's Lord. To the point where they went a step further. They were more malicious about it. They confused the minds of Gentiles. Confused, divided. They caused division. They were attempting to close the open door of faith in Jesus by what they were doing. But we see God's apostles counter this disbelieving Jews. How? They spent a long time there speaking boldly. They didn't just leave. A lot of preachers think, I've got to stay at a certain place to be there 3 years and leave. See, that should not be the case. We want to be there to stay somewhere so that we can speak boldly and grow towards church. If you speak the truth, God's church will grow because God is the one who opens the doors. But we see the reason why they had such success even in the next place they Lystra. They relied upon God and God's support. They did it through signs and wonders. They did it by their own hands. It wasn't, they could see it. It was something that was visible. But we see what this idea of division does to a city and where it comes from. If you turn me to the book of Galatians chapter 5, look what the Bible says about division. Vision. That's Galatians chapter 5. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 16, you see a list of things referred to as the deeds of the flesh. You ever wondered, well, how do you know the distinction between what flesh and if you're doing something good or if you're doing something that's not good? The Bible always has a way of defining itself. People want to pick out definitions from other places, but the Bible does a good job of defining itself. Look what it says in verse 16. But I say, walk by spirit, and you will not carry out the desire of the flesh. For the flesh sets its desire against the spirit against the flesh. These are in opposition to one another. We see opposite spirit, what Paul and Barnabas were doing, the flesh, what the disbelieving Jews were doing. They were opposition to one another, so that in verse 17, you may not do the things that you please, because the Jews want to do what they please. In verse 18, but if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. But now the deeds of the flesh are evident, which are morality, impurity, sensuality, adultery, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy. The Bible describes as jealous Jews, outbursts of anger. You think they showed that? Yes, they did. Disputes, dissensions, factions. Many say division. So we see division as a work of the flesh. This is exactly what these Jews were doing in Galatians chapter 5, verse 20. They created two camps, those who were with the Jews and those with the apostles. But we see of their tactic again. Violence is the tactic they chose to use as these disbelieving Jews. We see it's one of the first persecutions that they dealt with. But we see that God keeps the door of faith open by delivering Paul and Barnabas. That wasn't by accident. God did it. He delivered them because he's going to keep his door open. God's way will continue. He did it by making them aware of the danger and giving opportunity to flee and continue to preach and grow the Lord's church. So some people might say, well, they were stopped there, but you see that wherever they went, they kept on preaching the gospel. And you see even further now, they came back to those places where they were afraid of stoning. They went back. They were not afraid because they recognized that people need to see God's open door. Sometimes we miss what is right in front of us. We see that God also highlighted this open door in Lystra in verses 8 through 18. You see that in verse 9 and 10 that this lame man was lame from birth. Now, I've never personally seen someone healed from being lame from birth. No, I've never seen it. But this happened. That they had the ability that God gave them. Because again, it's one of those signs and wonders to reaffirm that they were of God. That he was lame from birth. But we see this man was listening. He had faith. And it said his faith made him well. So it was a two-way street. He was believing what they were saying. But God was using this incident to accomplish his work. Now, some people claim to do miracles today. I'm telling you, if I had the ability to heal people, the first place I would go to one of these children's hospitals, and I'd heal every child I saw. So these people, they claim to be, we know they're false. Because if they had the ability to heal, why would they go heal people who really desperately needed it? You see, miracles in this Testament time, they did not have the Bible. So they had to show another way. Also, when you have a high rate of illiteracy in a population, there's only one way to do it, is they got to see what you can do. So when they do signs and wonders, this was confirming God's word, and that he was trying to open the door to them. So you see, in verses 11 through 18, the crowd saw, and they reacted. And I love this text of going down to verse 11. When the crowd saw, they Paul had done. They raised their voice, sang in Lycotian language. We're talking about Greeks here. The gods, little g, have become like men, have come down to us. They have been calling Barnabas Zeus and Paul Hermes. So if you ever wondered, well, all those people saying, well, the Bible can't be true. You ever heard of Zeus and Hermes? You ever heard of Greek literature? The Bible actually mentions Zeus and Hermes. We know that that's true, so let me ask yourself, if this is true, what else got to be true about the Bible? You see, we serve a living God and a God that gives us the Bible that is absolutely true. But you ask yourself, why did they compare Paul and Barnabas to what they knew? They knew to be God. So they called Barnabas Zeus because, you see, he performed the miracle. So only Zeus, the most chief god, could have done that in their mind. And then Paul, because Hermes was known as being the speaker for Zeus. The chief speaker, the messenger. You see, in Greek culture, they're referred to as Zeus and Hermes. Roman, you see this Mercury or Hermes. They were so impressed with them that the people who were worshippers of Zeus, priests of Zeus, they had their own priest. They brought oxen and brought garland to the gates and wanted to offer sacrifices to the crowd. I tell you what, I've never been accused of being some kind of god, like that. But I have been confused recently, so I kind of understand a little bit what this is like. So recently I had the opportunity to go to a good neighbor event, one of the elementary schools here, and I was talking to some of the people. One of the girls cuts me off and says, "Are you famous?" And I didn't know what to say about that. She said, "Are you famous?" I said, "Well, my name is pretty famous. The only famous person I know is a basketball coach up in New York. His name is Will Brown." But I don't know what I exuded to her that she wanted to confuse me with somebody famous. But I wonder, in some respects, that's what happened with Paul and Barnabas. They were confused with what they were saying is these gods. But notice Paul's and Barnabas' reaction to them. In verse 14, but when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of it, they tore their robes and rushed out to the crowd, crying out and saying, "Men, why are you doing these things? We are also men of the same nature as you, and preach the gospel to you, that you should turn away from these vain things to a living God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them." So he says this living God is the one that made the earth and heaven. In Jewish culture, they tore when they were lamenting. So they were so serious. Don't worship us. We're just men. Do you know there's people in this world that they think it's okay to worship preachers? Don't you ever do that to me. I'm just a guy. I'm a herald. I'm just a man, just like you all too. You make mistakes. So many people preach you on a pedestal and then get upset when God literally falls. I'm just a man. They were just men. That's what we're saying. We're just men trying to preach the gospel of God. And they questioned the crowd and said, "Why are you doing these things? We are the same as you," meaning that we're not gods. We believe just like you believe. We're humans. We suffer physically like humans do. Let us tell you about the God of heaven, who is the true and living God. But they said generations past have done this. It says in Acts 17:30 that they went their own way. The God at one point let people do whatever they wanted, but he always represented, was supposed to be the Jews, but they did not do it. They weren't a good representative of God. And that's why I said, I was repeating this idea to the Jews first, who should have known, because they knew about this idea of monotheism, worshiping the one true God, where everybody else was worshiping these pagan gods and more than one God. And he says now, God is the one who overlooks that ignorance. That's why Paul Barnes had to restrain them from sacrificing them. They said, we are just men. But we see they had to leave in verses 19 to 20 because they once again, look what it says in verse 17. And yet he did not leave himself without witness, and that he did good and gave you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. So he's still testifying about who God is, the living God. Verse 18, even saying these things, with difficulty they restrained the crowds from offering sacrifice to them. Verse 19, but the Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and having won over the crowds, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, supposing him to be dead. So we say these jealous Jews, they followed them. They had to come all the way to another city and stir up another crowd, confusing people. But this time, they actually stoned Paul. They thought he was dead. But we see God makes sure his door stays open. See, all this persecution accomplished was spreading the word of gospel to more places. You can't close God's open door. So for my third point today, God continued to keep the door open to the region. We see this in verse 21 through 23. So in verse 20, but while the disciples stood around him, he got up and entered the city. The next day, he went away with Barnabas to Derbe. So we see Paul's only got stoned at the time. He just got up and went to the next city to Derbe. Verse 21, after they had preached the gospel of the city and made many disciples, they returned to Lystra and Iconium. Just to remind you, that's the same place where the Jews came from. They went back there. Why? Because God was trying to keep it open over that region. Why were they doing that? They were checking on the churches that they planted there. They wanted to encourage the churches and say, hey, look, these people can't kill us because God keeps the door open to everyone. They wanted to make sure that they understood the biblical order of things, that how you're supposed to worship God. And we see the king, he wanted to firmly see that the kingdom of God was established in those cities. We see that God's will be accomplished no matter the circumstance. Do you believe that, church? God's will be accomplished no matter the circumstance? Do you believe that? Well, my first point today, we see that God's intent with his open door was to grow faithful people. We see in verse 23, when they had appointed elders for them in every church. So see, that's their strengthening. Having prayed with them and fasting, they commended them to the Lord, who they had believed. In verse 24, they passed through Pisidia and Pamphylia. And 25, when they had spoken the word in Perga, they went down to Pamphylia. In verse 26, from there they sailed to Antioch, from which they had been commended to the grace of God for the work they had accomplished. When they had arrived and gathered the church together, they began to report all things that God had done with them and how they had opened the door of faith to the Gentiles. See, God's open door right there, our key verse. God is the key. He's talking about opening the door of faith to the Gentiles. Verse 28, and they spent a long time with the disciples. You see, if you look at the back of your Bible and see they have a map, you can trace these routes that we're talking about here. You can see the travel. But the detail you get here in the Bible is, as someone said, I think in class, it was 14 years. 14 years that they did this. They spent a long time in many places. But there was for a purpose. God wanted to make sure his open door grew the faithful people in certain areas. So we see that the word of God was spoken everywhere they went. They accomplished a great deal by not giving up on God's word. There's so many people, whenever you come across God's word, you get some kind of resistance from people when you try to teach them, they stop. They don't keep going like Paul Barnabas said. They kept on going back to where they were getting resistance. But see, the reason they offered a report to Antioch to all that happened to them, because they wanted to show focus back on God. What about them? It was God's doing to keeping them the faith in the region. But he wanted to ensure to them that God was doing this so that they understood that God was not leaving Christianity just for Jews, using it for Gentiles, but just for everybody that chose to believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Once they realized that door was open, they spent a long time there to ensure that God's open door was available. We see in Acts 14 it underscores the fact that God cares for all people. Don't let people out the world tell you that God cares about some people, that he cares about certain people. That God cares for all people. We can see this in the text of verse 14. But you might be struggling saying, I don't see how this account, Paul and Barnabas, even applies to me today. I want you to think about this. What we can learn from this text is that God desires everyone to hear and obey the gospel. Everyone. That's what's the point there. Some people think that God's not with us today, but think about this. God acknowledged their efforts. That's why he gave them signs and wonders and they were strengthened. Well, he gave them boldness to go back to where they were needed. We know that God acknowledges efforts on his behalf. So you can be strengthened and know that whenever you come to church, we come to worship God. But God acknowledges that he knows the intents of people's hearts. Don't let people think people might say something about you going to church. Don't let that bother you. Because we go to church to worship God, not ourselves, not other vain things. But God acknowledges and knows why we do what we do. We learn from this text that you never give up on the power of God's word. Never give up on the power of God's word. You might think, well, I don't know if I'm getting to people. You never know. Don't give up on that. If they have the open door, take advantage of the opportunity. Keep going. If they give resistance, keep going. That's what you learn from the text, that they did not stop when their first sign of resistance. You know, I was informed recently that they have a new type of parent out there. It's called the lawnmower parent. Heard of helicopter parent? I've heard of overbearing parent. I've heard of smothered parent. Lawnmower parent. It's a new thing. So what a lawnmower parent does is takes every obstacle outside of their way of their children, so they have no obstacles. That all sounds well and good in theory, but let me tell you the problem with that. Your children do not have obstacles in their life that they can overcome. Whenever they hit obstacles, crumble. The Japanese refer to this idea of that as strawberry generation. Strawberries are easily bruised and they never recover. Point is, we see that Paul and Barnabas did not, they weren't strawberries when it came to that. They did not give up on God's word, neither should we. We also can get from the text that it's worth staying at the Lord's church as long as you absolutely can. That means strengthen each other's faith. Stay until you no longer are living. And you can strengthen the area. I tell people it's important to show up at church. Why? If you don't think of that, you encourage other people just by being here. You know that? Whenever I see your smiling faces, I love looking out and seeing and recognizing you because I've seen you before. And if I haven't seen you before, I'm glad to see your face too. The point is, it's nice to see smiling faces. But we see you need to stay a long time, as long as you can at the Lord's church. Finally, don't let people win. You know, our nation is still here after 9/11 because we refuse to let evil terrorists destroy our nation and divide us in that way. So too, we need to be united as the Lord's church here in Aberdeen. Not let people win. Let us just disappear and face into nothingness. We need to remain strong. Keep God's door open here in Aberdeen and help with that effort. Have you given up on God's word? Have you given up on the Lord's church here in Aberdeen? We know know that God supports faithful efforts. Today, if you're wondering how in the world do I become a Christian, you can do like what they did earlier in Acts